Here's a figure for you. Out of 4,000 people eligible for payment from the infected blood scandal, only 10, not 10%, 10 have actually received full compensation since the new compensation scheme took off. Ha, as if. In May, we've just done the percentages on that. That means that only 0.25% of those people have been compensated, leaving 99.75% still looking for compensation.
It's a shocking figure, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
And in another shocking development, Richard Warwick was just 12 years old when he contracted HIV and hepatitis B and C after receiving blood at a specialist school where boys were treated for haemophilia. While Stuart Cantrell's father, Barry, died from AIDS after he underwent a number of blood transfusions to treat his haemophilia. Well,
they're both here now. We'll also be talking to the former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis about this. She, of course, I'm sure many of you know, lost her mother, Sheila, to hepatitis C from a blood transfusion during an operation for gallstones in the 1970s. So we'll come to you shortly, Sharon, at your home. Richard, let's start with you. We've spoken to you before, but for those who don't know your story, which is unbelievable, you're at the school. You're 10 years old, you've got haemophilia, and you were basically just treated like a human guinea pig.
Sure, that's exactly right. I would say we were sent really down there under false pretences, in so much as that we were offered world-class education and on-site care for our haemophilia, and were essentially used as lab rats, put into trials and tests and experiments for, we'll call them infectivity trials. And they were testing various different products on the children, giving them treatment unnecessarily. They didn't actually need it. And as a result, out of, I think there was 122 went through the school. We only now know of 30 that are still alive.
Oh, my goodness.
So most of them sadly passed away, died. It came up, I think, Sir Brian Langstaff dedicated best part of a volume to what actually happened at the school.
This blood that you were being tested with was increasingly coming from abroad. It was coming from America, in many cases, where it was being taken from prisoners, many of whom had HIV. It was coming from people living on the street. It was coming from people who were known to be infected, but nevertheless it was harvested, bagged up, frozen and sent across to this country and pumped into you.
That's right. I mean, we weren't self-sufficient in blood products in making our own material, so the government, well, very unwisely decided to import material from the States, and as you say, from very high-risk donors, paid donors that were given money for their plasma, and as a result that gave them an incentive to sell more and more, and in many cases to fuel their habits.
We're talking about one category I didn't mention was drug addicts who were sharing needles.
Sharing needles.
And as a consequence of this, then, you were infected with, what, HIV, hepatitis B and C, and that happened to you when you were a child,
yes,
effectively, didn't it?
Yeah, I went down there when I was about 11 years old, and at 12, we've seen some look-back an exercise to where they can actually test the material and products. When a test became available, they'd actually look back and retest those materials, see if there's any viruses. Just as you would if you found a nut or a bolt in, say, a packet of cornflakes, they could track it back to the production line and when that fault occurred. So, yeah, they found that I was diagnosed, infected rather, with HIV in 1978, along with non-A, non-B.
And this has had a huge, huge impact on your life, hasn't it? On every part of your life.
And on everybody else's lives as well. You know, I mean, we were just a small part of what actually took place. But so many people were severely affected, and so many good friends died, you know, and it wasn't just us at the school, where they use us as guinea pigs, essentially, for their medical research. But all around the country, from all different walks of life, people have been so badly impacted. And
you haven't had the full payment, the compensation you're due yet, have you?
No, I haven't, but I have had interim payment. An interim payment was made last year, and I think a small one the year before. But the government really have got to get a move on, you know. It truly is egregious that they've had the recommendations of setting up an infected blood compensation authority, which will allow the government to process the claims and give money to people. The problem is they've had that now over a year and a half, and they've only started processing claims in October this year, and they've done 10.
I know we've said 10 out of 4,000. I mean, that is Olympic-level foot dragging, isn't it?
It is.
If it was a sport, we'd be top. let's come to you now, Stuart. You, Richard, were talking about directly yourself. You're here to talk about your poor father, Barry.
Yep.
What happened to him?
So my dad was a haemophiliac, a severe haemophiliac. So haemophiliacs, they bleed. They can't stop their blood clot. They can't make their blood clot. No. And so one of the treatments in the early 80s was something called factor VIII, and that's a blood product. It's made by extracting it from whole blood. And so if the blood is infected with viruses such as HIV or hepatitis, then if you're having this product, you're likely to be infected.
Yep.
And my dad was infected with HIV and hepatitis C. So he died when I was 15.
How old was he when he died?
He was 48.
Oh, my goodness.
And so now I'm 50, so I've been waiting 35 years.
And so what's the situation then with your payments, the payments that are due to you, your family, because of what happened?
So at the end of October, they opened applications for interim estate payments. And so I put in an application and sent away all of the documents, and it was approved. And they gave me a date that the payment would be made. And 5 days after they approved it, they told me, no, we're not approving it.
Why?
We need more information from you. I'm one of these people...
This is so analogous with the post office thing, isn't it? We need more paperwork. We need more...
Exactly. We need more proof. I'm one of these people who has a line of succession claim. So my mum was the legal representative for my dad. My mum passed away in 2010. I am now the legal representative for my mum.
Got it.
And that's a fairly simple change. I'm an only child,
complex, is it?
No brothers, no sisters. And so it should be pretty straightforward. But then the Cabinet Office told the interim estate payment scheme that, no, we're no longer accepting line of succession claims. So they moved the goalposts.
So how hard is it for you then? You know, you've had all of this happen, you lost your father, dealing with this. Is it the case that you don't feel, until you get the payments, it's all sorted, that you don't have closure on it?
No, not at all. I mean, his death has not been recognised by the state yet. And so, I mean, there's going to be different levels of closure. I mean, we can't change what has happened. That will always be the case. But it would be nice to be able to move on.
Yes.
And a lot of this year, it's been the sort of the mental overhead of, have I got this form? Have I got that form? Do I have this information?
Yeah,
oh, I need my dad's national insurance number.
Yeah.
How do I get that?
Yeah.
And it's
All
been
right.
quite a challenge.
Thank you, Stuart. Should we go down to the West Country now and join Sharon Davis? Morning, Sharon.
Good morning.
Happy Christmas, Happy New Year and all that lies between.
Sorry to be talking about this, because you lost your lovely mum to this, didn't
Sheila.
you?
Yes, my mum was Hep C, and extremely typical. You know, she went in the 70s for a standard operation. In those days, they connected blood almost as a standard procedure. So she didn't realise that she was given Hep C until the 90s, because it is the silent killer. It attacks your liver. It's a virus. The great thing is that now we do have a way of being able to cure it, whereas in my mum's day, they didn't. So one of the biggest reasons I speak out is that 27,000 people have been affected by this affected blood with Hep C. And if you think you might be, please go get tested, because we can save you. We couldn't save my mum. For 20 years, she fought this. She was given all sorts of terrible drugs, which really affected her life. And although it prolonged her life, it did reduce the quality of her life. And she never smoked. She never drank. You know, she hardly travelled abroad. She came up, she babysat for me. She was the perfect mum, and she worked until she was 70 for the MOD. And what's so difficult is you just feel that she's so let down by the system. And there are so many people that are let down by the system. You mentioned 10 people. You know, I can't even get my mum's records properly. I must have written half a dozen times, recorded delivery letters, just trying to get the information to be able to apply. And to be fair, to me, I've given up, because it's not about the money. For me, it's about getting justice for people. It's about getting the story out there that's not being heard. And you guys are doing a great job, so thank you so much. But it's also about saving lives right now, and those people that are dying, getting some help so they can die with dignity.
Sharon, you are, how can I put this? You're a woman of the world. You're experienced, you're mature, you know how things work. Is your impression that the reason for these delays, the reason for that, we just need another, can we just have another look at that? What was the national insurance number, etc., is a deliberate attempt to stall. And so the next generation passes on, and that's the end of the need to pay compensation?
Yeah, that's how it feels. It really, really does. You know, I've tried so many different, and I've tried lots of people that I know that are actually in government, you know, and so I have a lot, probably more people that I can pull on than the average person in the street, and I still can't get the information that I need to be able to make the application. So as I said, I've almost given up, which is exactly what they want you to do, because it's never been about the money for me. It can't bring back my mum. It's about the justice. It's about, you know, recognising what was happened. The World Health Organization in 1975 warned the British government, warned people around the world about this system. They were pooling this blood. So not only were they getting blood donations, they were then just basically sticking it in one big pool and dividing it up. So, you know, it was cross-contamination as well. They were told about this over and over and over again. And it went on for 20 years they did this. They carried on for another 10, 15 years after being warned by the World Health Organization. So it's just the empathy for people that have really just been discarded, you know, in all of this. And your guess,
It's almost,
you know, it breaks my...
It's
whole families have been...
It's almost like an insult upon injury, isn't it? Just like another state disregarding of the individual. In a sense, your mother's life didn't matter, and she's gone now anyway. So we can all look. We can all look away. We can look ahead. It has that feel to it, doesn't it? Do you feel that we're not just looking at sort of red tape for red tape's sake, which we all have to live with in this country, but it's more like malign red tape.
It is, yes. I mean, it almost seems as though the government are intentionally stalling just to see how far they can push us, you know, and the number of people that are dying now, you know, it's a couple of people every week. It seems as though they just want rid of us, you know, and the stalling part of it, yes, you know, we're working at pace. That was one line that was used very much over the past year and a half by various government ministers. I think they just want to see the back of us. They never wanted to see this exposed in the way that it has been.
You see, it was a nuisance, don't they?
Yes, you know, and at the end of the day, there was a massive cover-up that took place. Yeah. The government didn't want to see this public inquiry go ahead in the first place.
It just seems the whole scheme is needlessly complicated. And again, I'm fairly tech-savvy. I can fill in forms. I know how to do this. Yeah. But there are elderly people who lost their children to this in their 80s, and I can fill in forms, I can send them away, but it's just so complicated, so many different facets and so many different things you need. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be, after what everyone has been through, they should be coming to us and on a silver platter going, here you go. Do
you think we'll be sitting here this time next year having the same conversation?
Let's hope not. Well, yeah. Probably very likely.
And Sharon, do you think that there should be, you know, some sort of deadline? Because, you know, we know that 2 people a week around that number are being lost because of this, aren't they? So time really is of the essence.
Yeah, and think about that, Charlotte. You know how cross we've been about the post office scandal, you know, and what effect that had on people. 2 people a week are dying because of blood that they were given, that they were not told about, that could have all been avoided. You know, that's thousands and thousands of people that have died prematurely. This is absolutely huge, you know, and we need to speak about it, and we need to make sure that those that are dying right now and their families have the support that they need. But please go and get a check if you think you might have Hep C.
Okay, you've made that point very clearly.
Sharon, thank you very much, and thanks also Richard and Stuart as well for talking to us. We have a couple of statements on this to bring you. Cabinet Office Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds told us that there is a budget of £11.8 billion for the victims, and final payments have already started to be made. There have been over £1 billion in interim payments paid to those infected and to the estates of those infected who have died.
Well, it would be interesting if he was here, because, you know, if he's saying that final payments have been made, we'd say, yes, that's true, 10 of them. 10 out of 4,000. 7:29, another statement here. The interim chief executive of the Infected Blood Compensation Authority has told this programme, we have made the first compensation offers this month with a total value of more than 13 million, and more are being processed. Every single compensation claim is unique with complex circumstances. That's why we've started with a small number of people making the first compensation claims. We will be building and improving the service as we go. Well, we'll stay on this and we'll monitor that, and we'll see
hope it
how
happens
fast
rapidly.
It happens. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Now, it is just coming up to 7:30. Let's find out what's happening with the weather.